Thank you very much, Shashi Kumar, for opening up a new dimension. Like the previous two speakers, you have also turned the light inward into focusing on the media, the wider media, not just the news media, but the entertainment media and the kind of role that the media plays in the production and reproduction of certain stereotypes that fuel this sexual violence against women. I would now like to invite Ms. Nagashila to give us her views.
Thank you. What is the perspective that I should present before this audience? Should it be the perspective of a mother of two young daughters who's constantly anxious and concerned about their safety and but at the same time wants to make them grow as independent citizens who are capable of taking care of themselves? Or as a lawyer who's assisting victims of violence, both men and women, and where I find that to make this machinery of law move is a Herculean task and sometimes even a Sisyphus task. And as a civil rights activist and as a person who's part of the People's Union of Civil Liberties for the last 2 decades, we are constantly fighting for persons who have been crushed under the weight of law. So you have these two extremes of law where the law doesn't work for the people who require it most and the law suppresses the innocent in a most inhuman way. Now it is in this scenario that we are trying to look at rape law, and in the context of the rising crescendos that we need to bring in capital punishment, you need harsher laws, stricter laws. Now the issue is the problem with the law. So briefly, because it's 10 minutes time that I have, I'll try to pack in as much as I can. But is the law inadequate is a question which all of us has to examine, because over the last few decades, there has been substantial reforms as far as rape law is concerned. Because initially, a survivor of sexual assault was seen as an accomplice or treated on par with an accomplice to a crime. And an evidence of a rape victim, which is the most crucial evidence in any rape case, was considered to be valid only if it was corroborated. Now this rule of prudence, which the courts repeatedly said and which they themselves admitted hardened into a rule of law, has slowly gone, and today an uncorroborated statement of a victim of rape or a rape survivor is considered to be sufficient to bring in a conviction. Now on the issue of consent, though the law is not very happily worded, but still earlier a rape survivor had to establish that she did not give consent and it was against her will. And for proof of that, you will find in the early case laws, you will find very graphic descriptions of the injuries on the various parts of the women and whether it was sufficient, whether it could have been caused. All these kind of discussions, you will find pages and pages of that. But today, once again, courts have gone ahead and said that it is sufficient if a woman says that she has not consented, and the burden of proof shifts in respect of most cases of rape. Then the other, in respect of the Evidence Act, sexual history of a woman was supposed to be something which you could use in the course of cross-examination to impeach the credibility of a witness. And a rape survivor is the most crucial witness in any of such cases. Now today, the law has been amended in 2003 to say that that is no longer permissible. In respect of punishment, law has brought in a minimum punishment. That is, if a person is convicted of rape, a judge has no choice, a minimum punishment of 7 years. Of course, there is an element of discretion where for adequate and sufficient reasons, the punishment can be reduced. And in respect of custodial crimes, the minimum punishment prescribed is 10 years RA. It could extend up to life. So, I mean, now the only thing that we are left with is death sentence. And I think it was earlier mentioned by one of the speakers that if there is death sentence, then rape victims would also probably be killed, because anyway the sentence is one and the same, you don't lose anything. But that's already happening. If you see the trend of case law for the last 3-4 years, every rape victim is also murdered. And invariably, in fact, as a part of my preparation for this, I just randomly went through, I was just going through from 1950 to the current, about 370 cases, reported cases of rape, which have gone up to the Supreme Court. And I found that 120, which is roughly about 1/3 of the reported cases, are rape of young children who are all below the age of 12. Most of them are 1.5, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years. And invariably, almost all of them either die because of the trauma or are killed. So that is already happening. Rape victims are already being killed. Now, so the problem is really the problem with the law, or is it in its implementation? Because ultimately, a rape survivor and family supporters, women's organizations, anybody it can be, we are entirely dependent on the criminal justice system to take the law forward, which is from the stage of registering an FIR. I think anybody who has had experience of going to a police station to register an FIR, you will find that it is an Herculean task. I mean, we fight cases for decades to get an FIR registered, which is just the beginning of the entire journey of getting the legal machinery to move. And once you manage to do that, the investigation is once again with a hierarchy of persons who are seeped in the patriarchal values and who believe that sexual violence is very often invited by the victim herself. Then if you are able to get through a proper investigation, then you have the prosecution, which is again invariably men who are holding the reins. And very often the prosecution is very, very short. If any practicing lawyer will be able to tell you that very often the public prosecutor wouldn't have even read the papers before going to the court. And the investigation officer, just as the matter is being called, will hand over the file. And the witness is put in the box and says, okay, what happened? Next what happened? Next what happened is there's absolutely no, the victim is not prepared to depose, tell her what are the procedures before the court, how should you proceed with the entire thing. There is nothing at all, there's complete indifference to the entire procedure. And if you are still able to surmount all this, where FIR is registered, investigation is done, it ends in a prosecution, then you still have the judges to get over. And assuming that you have a judge who finally convicts, you will find that punishments are generally very lenient. And even after there is a minimum punishment prescribed, you will find recently from the state of MP, there were at least a dozen cases where the judge refused to impose the minimum punishment prescribed under law, and in fact didn't give any reasons to give a lower sentence. And the Supreme Court had to remand all these cases back to the High Court to once again decide on the issue of imposition of punishment. So it is in this context that you're talking about, because the cry is for more security and the cry is for harsher law. But are we really barking up the wrong tree? Because when you're asking for security, whom are we depending upon? We are once again looking to the very same police, the army, the paramilitary to give us security. And very often the threat is from them, experience has shown. So there is no security, no security is not the solution. And harsher punishment. Punishment, you must understand, is the last link of a chain of the criminal justice system. And punishment will only happen if you first succeed in getting your case brought to the court, and if there is a conviction, and only then there is a punishment. And so really harsher punishment can never be the key. So somewhere, when you look back and reflect, for 30 years women have been demanding harsher punishments, lowering the standards of proof. That's again a very, very dangerous trend, because as I told you that lowering standards of proof can be a double-edged sword, because you might be at receiving ends. Just as we have daughters, we have sons. So you don't want your son to be at the wrong end, and merely because there's an allegation of rape that he can be hung. That can be a very draconian way of approach, and today rule of law and the procedures and the burden of proof principles which are embedded in our legal procedures is the only safeguard that a citizen can have, and lowering such standards can set to very, very dangerous precedents. It has already happened in our country. It's been lowered dramatically in the name of combating terrorism, in the name of, we have seen the struggles in the Northeast, where immunity is given to police officials. So lowering standards of proof can really be a very, very dangerous trend, and I think we must think hard before you put those as options to combating sexual violence. And somewhere I think we are placing too much faith and placing all our eggs in the basket of the judiciary, the judicial system, and I think that is really not going to offer us any solution. Because as I said, the criminal justice system can be very alienating, and women's groups and movements must understand that what is within their control. If we are part of a social movement, you are the players, you are deciding the agenda. But once it goes into the court halls, then the women's groups, the victims, their supporters, all of them are out. And you have now a different set of players who are the lawyers, the prosecutors, and the judges, and the ordinary citizen has absolutely no role and no control over those procedures. And hence, looking at the criminal justice system as the only solution to addressing issues of sexual violence and violence generally, I think is really a very limited perspective. So now coming back to then what is the solution? I think we really need to understand, I mean, there are no short-term solutions. We cannot look at rape as an individualized crime. It is a continuum in a system where woman is subjected to violence in various ways, in various methods, sometimes mental, physical, and it could also result in death. But it is a continuum in which rape is one such incident. And the other thing is, by only looking at punishment, I think the very first speaker, Justice Prabha Sridevan, said that punishment is not the answer, it should be prevention. And when we are looking at punishment alone, then I think somewhere we are already giving into the fact that there is no alternative, that being raped is a given, and now all that you can look for is punishing the offender. I think the perspective should be to ensure that we work towards prevention, and for that I think we need to look at educating and going back to our society, debating, relooking the way we are addressing the issues of women in our society, and that can only be the way forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Nagashaila ji. You have given us some insights into the way in which cases actually proceed inside the courtroom, and your suggestion that we need to look beyond the confines of the judiciary and the courts is also something that is very valuable. Our next speaker, Pushkal Shivam, please.
I would like to begin by expressing my gratitude to The Hindu for this opportunity. The story of the young woman who continues to battle for her life after being brutally beaten and gang raped has shaken the conscience of a nation that suffers from collective amnesia. It was not too long ago that a woman in Guwahati was molested by a gang of at least 18 men who smiled in front of cameras that recorded it all. We were outraged then, we are outraged now. Just like a camera, we are engaged in recording. We record crimes and brutalities committed against women without thinking for a moment why our society treats women so badly. According to a perception poll, out of all the G20 countries, India has been labeled the worst place to be a woman. Saudi Arabia comes second. Another poll of experts places India among the 5 most dangerous places to be a woman, in the distinguished company of Afghanistan, Somalia, Pakistan, and Congo. If you're looking for the positive side of the story, our rape record is not as bad as the Democratic Republic of Congo yet. Outrage has not translated into profound social and ethical change. Take, for example, our political class. Indian politics seems to be antithetical to any sort of genuine social change. Over the past few weeks, we have witnessed a rare unanimity in both houses of parliament. Politicians, cutting across the party lines, have spouted a barrage of platitudinous statements demanding stricter punishment and death penalty. What is shocking is that the same politicians allowed hundreds of candidates accused of sexual violence to contest elections over the last 5 years, and 30 of them were charged with rape. Political parties have been, in a way, fomenting circumstances that they so conveniently condemn in Parliament. The draconian Armed Forces Special Powers Act remains intact in Manipur, Kashmir, and other parts of the Northeast. The Act provides impunity for rape and other forms of sexual violence in conflict areas at every level. In other words, the national security of a country, and I'm ashamed to say this, the national security of our country abets the rape of its own citizens. Irom Sharmila has been on a fast for 10 years now, protesting the draconian provisions of the AFSPA. The plight of women violated by the armed forces does not outrage us. Only one inspector came to investigate. If someone is raped in Delhi, the nation is outraged. If someone is raped here, no one knows about it, said the father of the 8-year-old Dalit girl who got raped and murdered in Saharsa in Bihar last week. Let's face it, we as a society are complicit in the crimes committed against women. Selective abortion of girls, especially after a firstborn girl, has increased substantially in India. According to a study conducted by The Lancet, 12 million girls were aborted over the past 3 decades. From yearning for a male child to giving him more of everything, we are indoctrinated to believe that men are superior. Sorry. We are also victims of cultural modeling through sexist ideology as expressed in religion, law, and myth. The Bhagavad Gita, for example, speaks of Shudras, Vaishyas, and women as one category, all born out of sin. Other religious scriptures prescribe penance for a woman who is raped. Invariably, it is the woman who is seen as tainted and has to be punished. We continue to follow this tradition in our attitude towards rape of women. We continue to make a victim of the victim. The vilest insults in every language refers to parts of female body or to female sexuality. Rape is but an extreme manifestation of gendered notion of violence. Women are not only disadvantaged, but also psychologically restrained, given the fear lurking in their minds. We have for long known that rape has been a way of terrorizing women and keeping them in subjection. Scholars have made the point that man's ability to rape women has led to dominance of men over women. Consider the twofold impact of rape. It dishonors women, and by implication, it dishonors the family. The offense committed upon women does not count as a crime, but as an assault on the honor of a family. Apart from problems with law enforcement, we fail to educate our men to respect women. We are against sex education in senior schools. Our cinema and advertisements treat women as sex objects. When approaching the media, the victim of rape has to wrap her head with black cloth. Why? Because the onus of the crime here is on the victim, not the perpetrator. I would argue that the onus of fighting rape should be on men and not of women. Incidents of sexual violence must compel one to confront the dubious privilege of being a man in the Indian society. Men can afford to take their sex for granted. Particularly in India, the relationship of male sexuality to gender is almost taken for granted. It's almost totally silenced. Since we must engage with gendered notion of power in order to fight rape, this silence should be replaced with introspection. Rape is a social practice which has been resistant to progress of humanitarian reforms and to profound moral and ethical considerations. It must be stopped. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Pushkal. Anger is a much underestimated human emotion. People tend to vilify it because the assumption is that it clouds one's judgment, but I think Pushkal's expression of very measured outrage and his ability to draw together all different aspects of the crime, the links between the certain approach to national security, crimes against women, and all the other links you made, I think, are very, very valuable for today's discussion. Thank you. Our last speaker is Ms. Supriya Rao from Ethiraj College, please.
Good evening, everyone. I promise not to take much of your time. Today, before coming, I called up my friend and I asked her, what do you think I should talk about? Everybody is older to me. They're all going to be focusing on serious issues and I don't know what to talk about. She just said one thing. She said, be yourself and speak what's on your mind. So I'm just going to go ahead and tell you all what's been on my mind for the past 6 days. Rape in itself is a heinous act. There is no disagreement to that. And it was pure fate that this incident was brought to light, a very harsh light at that. There have been rape cases before, but none of them not quite blown out of proportion as this one. This was different. You all might remember the reports in the papers saying that the woman lay there on the road, literally almost naked, for more than an hour and a half, and no one actually came ahead to help her. They were all just standing on the road looking at her, some people not even sparing her a second glance. We all usually take a circular route to go home in such times. How many, I ask you all, how many of you actually raise a voice to help those of us who need us? And what happens when we actually raise our voice against people like that? How many of us actually take steps to help them? What happens when we go ahead and report these cases? Tear gas attacks and lathi charges against the students of Delhi? Is that what is supposed to be done at times like these? I don't think so. A woman these days is treated as an object of lust before marriage, and after marriage, an object of reproduction. She is seen as someone who conceives, and after conceiving, she's just left to her own will. Is that all a woman is? Doesn't a woman have any rights? Isn't she supposed to be treated equally, just like a man is in the society? These questions must have crossed all our minds at some point or the other, but when we do voice it out, it's already too late. A 23-year-old girl is in Safdarjung Hospital, now Singapore, battling for her life by the time we actually ask out these questions. Next, we come to policing. You can improve human policing, but the question stands, what about moral policing? Can you police the mind of a man? Can you police the mind of a perpetrator? Can you actually police the mind of a rapist when you don't even know who is going to rape whom, at what point of time, when, where, how, and why? Can you police the way a girl dresses? Yes, you all are parents. You all are going to be parents at one point of time. But you can only police your own children. There are so many others who go unpoliced. What can you do about them? What can you do about them? How much can the task force itself do? The police can do only up to a certain level of patrolling. The left is up to the citizens and the denizens of the country. What happens when a girl goes to report a crime? She's more emotionally damaged after she comes out of the interrogation cell than she is after the rape itself. Questions like, what did he do to you? And how did it happen? And can you describe it? Are usually more traumatizing than the act itself. You can only imagine what a girl goes through. And you can also imagine the thing that the family is going through right now, beside the girl sitting in the hospital, shedding tears about what the country as a whole has done to her daughter. And the next topic for discussion about breakfast, on every breakfast table in the mornings will be, what do you think has happened to the rape victim? Have you seen today's paper? What are the headlines today? Is there anything about the girl's family? Is she alive or is she dead? What do you think will happen? These quotes adjust and the thought trail continues. The media, ever ruthlessly, continues to dig deeper into the problem and makes a mountain out of a molehill without actually finding the solution to this problem. What is the media's role and what is it actually doing is something to be considered. What's done is done. What's the point of investigating it further and bringing sadness to sorrow to the whole family? It just worsens everything. Why I ask, should the rapist be put behind bars? Why should they be put behind bars or given life imprisonment? They're only going to walk free after 14 or 17 years, or even less if they behave themselves. I think I speak for the entire student body, especially quote unquote, the fairer sex, when I say that the guilty party should be castrated. They should not, I repeat, they should not be put behind bars. that only gives them more and more chance to walk free tomorrow. I mean, why should the rapist die happily even after they're hung? They only die happily and within a minute when the rape victim herself has to suffer every day throughout what is remaining of her life, struggling to get through from the morning to the evening. Who do you think will marry her now when they actually come to know that so-and-so person has been raped? Who will marry her? I am a girl, I think too. And I don't think that only the girl's family should think about that. All of us should think about what should be done to these people. And the solution, as usual, does not involve jailing them or hanging them. They should be castrated. And I end in the words of Arnab Goswami, the very popular journalist. All this is just some food for thought. Thank you.
Thank you, Supriya, for a series of very provocative questions, which many people here may agree or disagree with. I, for one, don't agree with your last suggestion. I vehemently disagree with castration as a solution for a variety of reasons. We carried an op-ed in the Hindu which lucidly explains why, but I will present just one aspect of this here. I didn't want to part of the assault on the woman for whom we are so concerned today involved physical objects that would still be present in the hand of a man after he is castrated. What do you do about that? So the issue is really one of attitude, law, and social values, cultural values. But anyway, I want to open the floor to discussion here, and I'm sure you'd like to respond to what I said in any case. Before we do that, I have an announcement. DCP Vanita is in the audience and is also prepared to take answer some questions, if any are put directly to her. Please come on stage, ma'am. At this stage, I would now like to open the floor for discussion. The rules are, as I said at the outset, do we have microphones? We do, right? So please raise your hand when I identify you. A volunteer will come and give you a mic. Tell us who you are in 30 seconds and ask your question. We'll start with you, sir. Go ahead.
I just would like to respond to some of the articles appearing in the media. The first is about fast-track courts. I think it's a terrible idea. They should be abolished and banned. They only prove that our legal system is rotten and unable to deliver justice. All cases are important, even a rent control case. I remember as a college student, I used to be in the courts for maybe 5-6 years of my life. 3390 of 1978 was the case number. I remember it by heart. The other party told us every lie possible. There was no perjury, there was nothing. I do believe that our courts need to deliver justice quickly. 2, this thing about all women police stations, again there will be a thing that, no, don't come here, go to that station, that is all women, this isn't. Each police station should have a women's cell of maybe 3 people. Finally, coming to the media, I think your role is very important. You are business houses, but your role is the most important. Today you are our Supreme Court. Please remember that you serve a very important role in today's society. I remember many years ago, one deer died on Sardar Patel Road because there was no wall on the Raj Bhavan and IIT. The Hindu carried a color photograph on the front page, and we had a wall saving the deer. Today, the elephants of Palghar district are treated far better than our women and children. I do believe the media should highlight issues and continue doing so. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Can I throw that question of fast-track courts to you?
Too swift a procedure may not result in justice. I know fast-track courts have come to stay, but if the system, the whole process is efficient and accountable and certain, I think even without fast-track courts we'll be able to deliver justice. he may have a point. It's not a case against fast track court, but the system needs to be, see, the woman who goes there should not feel, why did I land up here? Right from the police station till the time the judgment is delivered. And there I think we should reform ourselves, the judicial officers, the judges, and then every court will be a fast track court maybe.
And,
it should be.
Mr. Natarajan, the question on all women's police stations or versus a women's cell in every police station?
Yeah, definitely. In fact, the 1,200 odd police stations, the government has decided to keep a women's cell instead of concentrating all the women in a police station. In a district, maybe a handful of police stations will be available. So, for example, in Chennai, there are about 14 to 15 all-women police stations. So, they are going to have, and they are having in all the police stations a small cell, a sub-inspector and 2 women constables are there. But again, the question of sensitizing them, that is also equally important. That, of course, is being done.
I don't have questions. I am nobody to ask questions here. Only thing I have to say something about the violence against women.
In 1 minute, please. Not more than a minute, yeah.
What I say is, women should be empowered. They should have power to attack the assailant or the attacker. You take the case of Nandini, calf Nandini. Nandini is the daughter of Kamadenu. Both were under the protection of sage Vasishta. Once Vishwamitra came to know about these, Vasishta, okay, yeah, sage Vasishta.
Yeah.
So, Vasishta had so much prosperity with him.
Right, sir. We got the point. Thank you. Next, yeah, at the back there, please.
Yeah, hello. My name is Sundari. There are 2 things I would like to ask. One is for Supriya, when she said that, who is going to marry? I think we have this problem with ourselves that marriage, virginity, and all these things are very, very important. I think we've been brought up like that. I think the culture, all those things need to change. And a young girl like Supriya saying, who will marry her? I think that needs to change. There's one more thing. A few years back, I read about a case where a father in a drunken state, he raped his own 6 or 8-year-old daughter. Okay? He was taken to the police station, but the wife, that is the mother of the child, refused to file charges. Because when she was asked why, she said, he is the breadwinner. What do I do? I mean, looking at it, I would not blame that woman also. So what is the solution for this also? Please, I would like to know.
Yeah, Supriya, go ahead.
Sir, you said something about castration. You said there were a lot of physical objects involved. There was also a high level of testosterone involved. Castration might solve that too.
Anyway, there's lots of, I mean, there's a whole scientific literature out there which suggests that it doesn't alter things. But if you want to answer a question.
And yeah, about your question, chivalry still exists. There might be a man someday who might marry a woman who's been through enough trauma. And also, one more thing, there are still men like that. There are still men like that, and also that question was on behalf of the parents' generation.
Suddenly I see that, so many rape cases being reported. Where were these stories all these days? So just because there are people in Delhi protesting and there's a hue and cry now, suddenly there's a spurt in the reportage. I think this has to be made a regular issue in the newspapers. That's one question, and I'd like you to respond to that, And second, another observation I have, especially after hearing what Supriya said today, is that there are 2 responses to rape. I mean, because 2 of our speakers raised the point of Panchali. I mean, they brought up Panchali. So I was reminded that there is one Draupadi who gets assaulted and she shouts for help. She asks for help. She asks Krishna to come and rescue her. There is another Draupadi in Mahashweta Devi's story, Draupadi, who strips and challenges the man to come and rape her. You know, so I think a woman should be empowered enough to stand up to the perpetrator. I would really love that day when this woman on whose behalf we are speaking herself comes in a forum like this and speaks in front of us without any fear or without any, you know, stigma. That will be true empowerment for that woman who's been through that. So I think confronting the, rather than, you know, hiding in shame and, you know, saying that, oh, this happened to me. So that attitude has to change. And the third thing that I want to point out is that, you know, we have to talk about women's own perceptions of themselves. It's very, very important. I mean, we are all talking about how others see a woman, but how a woman sees herself is extremely important, and that's something that hasn't figured in the discussions at all. And there are lots of young women here, and, you know, I would like the discussion to also touch upon the self-practices that we impose on ourselves, you know, wear your dupatta, you know, walk like this, and, you know, don't smile at some guy randomly on the road. You know, these self-practices are sort of, you know, small ways in which our own subjectivities are being shaped by the larger power structures out there. So we have to discuss that in a forum like this, and we have to change that. The level, change at the level of the individual is equally important. Thank you.
Thank you. If I could just answer the first part of a question. You know, it's very hard to explain why certain issues have a catalyzing impact on the national media. Here, the fact that it happened in Delhi plays a role. The fact that there was a particular brutality or brutal edge to this assault was a factor. You know, so it's very hard to say. I mean, I agree with you that the media should be sensitive to these things, but you know, often when we cover them, I get, even now, one gets complaints from people that ye dino page vanle pod rahe. You know, there is a certain, you know, the public attitude also switches off, switches on at different times. So I don't have an easy answer, but you know, if you remember in 2004, when Manorama in Imphal was assaulted and killed by 2 soldiers from the Assam Rifles, and then after that you had the protest by the mothers of Imphal, who stripped in front of the, in a way, taking a leaf from Harshmita Devi's short story, stripped in front of the Assam Rifles. There was a lot of outrage, a lot of coverage. It ran for a while. I know that our paper pursued Manorama's case. Finally, these things flounder because neither the judiciary nor the law enforcement agencies, you know, these things don't seem to have the kind of impact. And I think all of us in the media realize that this particular instance, the way it's catalyzed public opinion, maybe this is that turning point when we can push and bring about those changes that all of us, you know, ardently desire. So I accept what you're saying, but I do hope that this particular incident and the way that we're covering it will bring about that kind of change. Sir, you have the mic.
Now, so much we have been talking about rape and sexual violence and all that. I would like to focus on the institutionalized violence against women at various levels, from government to media to religion, everywhere. Now, coming to government, it took almost 20 years for the tribal women, 18 women in Vachati, to get a verdict delivered in CBI court. Hindu and Frontline has covered so much, thanks to you. But I want to ask the judicial ex-judge here and the ex-police officer here in the media, why it should take 20 years in Tamil Nadu, where is the land of social justice, where we had a woman as a chief minister and a woman who brought this novel idea of all women's police station in Tamil Nadu. But what happens to the Pachati tribal women here? And then they will go on appeal to High Court and Supreme Court. It's going to take another, at least 25% of the people have died.
Fine, sir. We got the
one. Second.
No, I think because lots of people have their hands up. One more. Sir, please, lots of people have their hands up, so we'll take your question. Yeah, sir, you want to answer that?
Frankly, for law's delays, we have no excuse. And for what happened at Vachati and the delay, I really cannot offer any explanation or justification, let me say. But criminal jurisprudence and the justice delivery system here, it's really woeful. It's And in his biography, Justice Chinnappa Reddy says, this is perhaps the best social comment about our own system, the way our criminal justice progresses. I really cannot say this is the reason why, nor can I justify it. And just 1 minute to the young girl who just spoke. 3 cheers to you for raising the question about Panchali. You're right. I think women must raise their voice for themselves and face it. I really appreciate what you said, and congratulations.
At the back, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, my name is Swapna. I am a patent attorney. My father was in the army, and if you asked him about the violence that you just spoke about, like what happened with Tangja Manorama, he would deny it. He would say it could never have happened. It's just a media creation. So I do believe that institutional violence, particularly at the hands of the police and the army, should be curtailed. My question is, when you do your psychological testing to find out whether a person is fit to join the army or the police, why don't you test them for gender sensitivity? Same with teachers and doctors. I mean, doctors are not people who score the highest marks. They are people who are sensitive. And I believe that there should be a test for certain very important such roles that people play, like in the army, the military, teachers and doctors. The second is, I believe that the latest annual confidential reports in the civil service include a column on their response or attitude towards scheduled caste and scheduled tribes. You can correct me if I'm wrong. Why don't they add one towards the attitude they have for women? Those are my questions. Why doesn't the police and the civil service take these things into question?
If I'll just save time by giving the mic. Zara, if you can give the mic to the lady in the back. Right there. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Nisha. I worked as a teacher, and I'm glad I'm speaking right after her. So I really liked how we started off saying we're going to talk about attitudes, values, and mindsets, and I was really surprised nobody brought up teachers in schools. Look at the kind of textbooks we have. The father's always the breadwinner, the mother's working at home, the girl learns to stitch, the boy goes out and play. These are the textbooks we have, these are the values that our children learn. And if we do not change the way the curriculum is designed, we cannot change anything. And I'm really surprised that people are not talking about changing curriculum. As adults, we're talking so much about this. Do we care about what our children are talking about this? Children are watching this on TV. Do we know what our children think? Are we able to talk to our children about what is rape? What do I teach my girls about taking care of themselves? And if the curriculum does not change, I really don't think anything will change in this country.
Thank you. Ma'am, can I throw the first question to you about how in the police recruitment, how do you deal with the question of, do you test for gender sensitization or how gender sensitive a recruit is?
No, during the time of recruitment, there is no such a gender sensitization test or something is happening. But we do give them this gender sensitization programs once they are inducted. Right now in police training college, I was the principal in police training college for more than 3.5 years. Gender sensitization course is one of the important courses we are conducting there for all level officers, not only for recruit PCs. It goes up to the level of even IGs, ADGs also. We are conducting that sensitization courses. I think that alone is not sufficient. Giving courses, course material, changing the syllabus in school, that alone is not sufficient. What are we doing at home? When that girl was asking with Supriya that marriage is not the ultimate end for the girl, we accept. Marriage is not everything. But it should not be a forced decision. If that girl, the victim, rape victim, wants to get married and we are forcing her not to marry because this is not an issue, that is the point where Supriya was talking about. She was telling me right now, so no decision should be forced on a woman. We know how to think. We read the same textbook which you people are reading, men are reading. We enter into the force with the same kind of training. And I accept, I want to appreciate that girl who want to include this one question, in ACRs. What is their attitude towards this women? That should be included. Even I felt it so many times that the attitude towards the women officers are even sometimes bad. We are also looked upon like only women, not like officers in many of the cases. So this is an issue to be raised, to be discussed. But regarding what you are asking,
at the level of recruitment,
recruitment level, gender sensitization courses are there. And regarding these all-women police stations, ours is the only state where we have all women stations, all women police stations are functioning so well. It was inaugurated by the Honorable Chief Minister of Tamil Nadu, and I personally know where these rape victims or whichever victims going to the police stations are not treated badly. I can assure you, at least in Chennai Police, our commissioner, our previous commissioner is here, he knows better. We are generally sensitized. And more than that, these domestic violence cases, nothing to do with the all-women police station nowadays. We have protection officers, and ours is the only state who immediately announced these protection officers. And if some domestic violence is happening in your home or something, you can immediately go to a protection officer who is not a police officer, who is only a social welfare officer. You can go there anytime, you can get your complaint registered and and they themselves can send reports to the Judicial Magistrate Court, and the system is very well functioning now, sir. This is for your kind information.
Thank you, ma'am. This gentleman in the front.
Sir, I have a question.
No,
My name is Ashwin.
Sir, there are lots of people, please.
My name is Ashwin.
So please. Yeah, go ahead. Sir, somebody has the microphone in the back. Go ahead.
I have some random points. First line to Supriya. No need to restrict a woman for a martial life or restrict her for marriage just because a mad dog has bitten her. It's not. It's completely, you know, it's a medieval mindset, and this society has to change it. I'm sorry sorry that you have a mindset about that, and these young girls they have this mindset. I'm not criticizing you, but I should say that the society as a whole has a mindset about that, and that must be changed. And about policing, I think no crime must be less. And no crime must be treated leniently. I think every kind of crime is connected. The case of the Delhi, where first the rapists have pickpocketed, then they have consumed alcohol, and then they have raped. So when the police had prevented in the pickpocketing, this crime could have prevented. I think no crime should be left unattended and leniently. Everything must be. There's no separate fast track courts for something and leaving aside others something. Every kind of crime is connected.
Thank you.
And about the society, I think what the teacher raised is the most important issue. The change must start from the society. I think the men should be given opportunity to learn about the opposite gender. They should know what the opposite gender thinks, and when they should realize that when the opposite gender is saying no, she means no, and she doesn't want anything about that. And
Thank you.
And the men should know about that. Thank you so much.
Our managing editor, Mr. Jayant, is signaling that time is running out. We have two last questions. He has selected them, so go ahead.
Good evening to everyone here. I would just like to ask the panel members that I, as a college student, and many other girls, the minimal steps that I can take to protect myself against such assaults. I'm surprised that none of them touched that.
You're talking about physical, yeah.
Any kind of protection
okay,
I can take.
Fine. I'll take the last question now from you, and then we'll come back to the panel. Sorry, sir, please. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you very much. I'm from America, obviously. I'm a lawyer and a nurse. I did a lot of criminal law.
So hold the mic up. Yeah.
I have a major problem with this forum. I think it's cathartic, and I think it's cathartic, and I think it's almost useless. There are 800 million people. There are 800 million people who are not here, not represented by anyone. This should have been called the fight against rape in cities. It has nothing to do with the crowd out there in your villages. They didn't, you said the rape raised the conscience of the nation. It didn't raise anything out there.
Thank you very much. I'd like to now, I'm sorry, we're out of time for discussions from the floor. I'd like to throw the mic back now to our panelists for last words. Shashi, you want to say something? He's got.
I raised it. I'm going to contest that. The monopoly of self-righteousness is not just yours, sir. It's also, you know, when you say what you did, you're also being as elitist and as, narrow-minded as you claim we are. We are concerned, we are speaking about it. This is a forum, and there is a way about speaking in a forum. And we did not ask to be spoken, to come here and speak. We were asked to speak, we were invited to speak, and we spoke. I don't know what your grouse is. For the first time, it is true that there was a spontaneous outpouring of people on the streets of Delhi, and to that extent, I think it really pricked the conscience of the nation. I don't see what is your problem with this. I just don't understand your problem with this.
Pushkal, you want to say last comment?
One comment which I would like to refer to a certain term used by the gentleman there, mindset. I think women are structured in a society in such a way that they act as both subjects as well as agents. So women, more than any other group, have collaborated in their own subordination. They have internalized certain values that subordinate them to such an extent that they pass it on to their children. And I think that is one thing that must also be addressed.
Sir, any last comments from you?
What is important from what all of you have said, there is need for a discipline in the house, and if that is enforced properly the education side, because the parents are second teachers and teachers are second parents. If that system works properly and we bring up our children properly and we are good examples, the problem is we don't have good examples in society, and that is the reason why we are having this kind of mishap. So if we have good examples, as parents we are good examples, I'm sure this kind of heinous crimes will not be committed without any the remorse. People are indulging in crime, and that is a very dangerous situation. Thank you.
Ma'am, any closing comments from you?
When Mr. Nataraj talks about discipline in the house, I understand it to be this, that there is no difference between the parents as far as the sharing and the responsibility and the attitude to each other. If the child thinks that her mother is a second-class citizen in the house, then I think she feels less, and if it's a boy child, he feels he's better. I think one of you said that the boy gets the better share of the food and whatever, and the rules are easier. And so then he grows up into a man who thinks he can use this as a weapon not just individually, even on a larger scale, as you saw in army. It could be an intercommunal conflict, intercaste conflict, various ways where women are used as the objects to tell the other group, we hold the power. And I think that should end. And this girl from Delhi who's fighting, I really hope because of her, all of us will change. It is too much has happened. I think no more.
Nagashala, last comments from you?
Just to continue with what the other speakers have been saying, just as women are victims of their own socialization in society, I think men are equally caught up in the same role models of being macho and masculine and asserting their masculinity. And so today, if we really want to address rape, it should be a joint effort of both men and women, and only that can ultimately solve the problem.
You know, any forum like this, which, well, everybody here, ma'am, represents. With the approval of the House, may I give her a last word? Go ahead. Can somebody give her a mic, please? Ma'am, but just very, very briefly, please. Yeah. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Debbie Westcott. First, ban porn in all the houses. The government has to ban porn. Porn sites. Every house. I walked into my neighbor's house and I could see an 8-year-old child is there studying in the 3rd standard. Father and mother, uncle is watching porn. Whoever thinks of banning this, the government has to take steps and include moral science classes, social studies. It has to be part of life, not only maths, physics and chemistry. You don't wake up and eat maths, physics and chemistry. And hats off to Supriya Rao. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. This brings the public part of the event to a close. I would like to invite Nirupama Subramaniam, Associate Editor of The Hindu, to propose a vote of thanks.
Thank you, Siddharth. It's been a great evening. It has, the response from the audience has been fantastic. Thank you all for showing up today at this public forum and participating so spiritedly. Your views have been very interesting to hear. For us as journalists and for everybody here, I think, it has been very eye-opening. Thank you also to all our speakers who who agreed to speak here at very short notice. Thank you, Justice Prabhasri Devan, Mr. Nagaraj, who was invited at very short notice. I especially thank him, Mr. Shashi Kumar, Ms. Nagashila, Mr. Pushkar, and Ms. Supriya, and DCP Vanita. Thank you all for being here. Also, I'd like to thank Sriram Chits for sponsoring this event, and all the people, all my colleagues who put in so much effort to make this such an interesting evening and an educative evening, really. First is Jayant, the managing editor, then Meera Srinivasan and Vasudha Venugopal, who found this hall for us. Also, Ethiraj College for agreeing to give this hall to us. Thank you all.
As is the tradition at Hindu events, could everybody please rise for the national anthem?